All right,
What about Brother Wendell?
we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to African Esquire TV. I'm your host, Tierney Sheree, and I'm here with some very, very special people who are definitely in the fight for Black liberation with me. So before I even get started on today's subject, I want to just introduce everyone to you. So if we can go one by one, I'll start with Nassor. Can you introduce yourself?
Hello, family. My name is Nassor Ade. I'm the recruitment and membership chairperson at We Charge Colonialism, and I can't believe a year has gone so fast. It was just like yesterday when I joined. Welcome.
Is it on me now?
Oh, I'm sorry, Brother Konata. You introduce yourself too.
All right, my name is Brother Konata. Yeah, the year has gone by very quickly. And actually, this time last year, I was where Jamaal is, and we were on the chats going back and forth, and I was trying to keep up and be on my vacation at the same time.
Frank, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Frank Mauba, member of this great organization, and I am the chair for the Political Action Committee. And I'm glad we have hit 1 year old. I'm so happy, and we'll see how we're going to progress in the future.
And last but not least, Jamaal.
Hey, my name is Jamaal. I'm broadcasting from Mombasa, Kenya. You know, that is that next to the ocean here in Kenya. It's about 6 hours away from Nairobi. You know, Nairobi is the main city I normally be at in Kenya, but I took a little vacation during the vacation, to the ocean front. So I'm just chilling. So I hope the broadcast team and the listeners are bearing with me. I still got my morning voice. It's currently 3:08 in the morning, so I'll try to wake up for y'all.
All right, everyone. So essentially, the point of this program today, this is We Trust Colonialism. These are some of the leaders in We Trust Colonialism. It's been 1 year since we launched. Over a year ago, I released a video on YouTube, and a few brothers were great enough to answer the call. So I wanted to just do a video. We're going to introduce, basically what we've been doing and what we're doing moving forward. 1 year since we started. So what is the plan moving forward? So before we even get there, for each of you, if you could just speak on what initially made you want to join. Were you already an organizer? I'm actually going to start with Nassor and Brother Konata because I know you two actually responded to a YouTube video that I released saying that I wanted to do an organization that was going to focus on colonialism and the decolonization of Africans in America, and you two actually answered that video. So if you could speak to that, what made you decide that you wanted to join an organization? Is this something that you would normally do? And if not, what made you kind of break out of your shell?
Well, I've always been concerned about the plight of Black people in general everywhere. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago. I've grown up in the United States. I came to the United States when I was about 5 years old, and the plight of Black folks in America has always made me concerned that what affects me here in Brooklyn is also what affects my people in Trinidad and Tobago. So, when it comes to poverty doesn't just affect Black people in Brooklyn, but it also affects Black people in Trinidad and Tobago. So I said to myself, I want to be a part of an organization that wants to fight for Black liberation, and freedom from colonialism, because colonialism is not just international, it's also internal, right? It's also within the borders of the United States, in the borders of New York, and in the borders of Brooklyn. So I want to be a part of an organization that is aware of the plight of Black people internally here in the United States, and I want to be a part of this team. And I believe this is We Charge Colonialism is the organization that will make us aware of Black people internally and internationally. So that's why I want to be a part of We Charge Colonialism.
Thank you. How about you, Brother Konata?
Let's see, where would I start? When I was 18 years old, I joined the U.S. Army, and well, I can even go before that. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, which is basically like Little Africa. When I was a kid, if I didn't go to school, I might not see any non-Africans all day. You know, K through 12, I had African principals, African superintendent, African mayor. That's the type of life I was in, and so I really didn't, come face to face with any type of racism. So when I joined the army, that's when I was off on my own. That's when I started to see what was really going on. I started to see like favoritism and things of that nature, and I was like, wow. And it's like we all supposed to be in the army. We all wearing the same uniform, but we all not getting treated the same. And that was my first eye opener. And to date myself, Public Enemy came out with that song "Black Still in the Hour of Chaos" during that time, and I was like, wow, I've been had. So I remember my birthday came up, and I asked my mother to give me some books on Malcolm X. I don't know why, but I picked Malcolm X. I read all about Malcolm X. And ever since that time, I just was always trying to reclaim myself, become more African, become more free, and trying to figure out how to be free. And I kind of went the religious route. I would study a lot of different groups. They were always religious based over the years, and I joined a couple organizations and studied with some organizations. It just wasn't really right. And then I spent a lot of time on YouTube because I always felt like I was a minority within a minority. It was like I was the only person that was interested in freedom for Black people out of the people that I knew. It was like a minority, even in my own family. It was like I was never really had anybody to talk to that would be interested in things that I was interested in. So YouTube was that outlet. And so it was a lot of people I watched, but they were all talking, and they weren't really teaching me anything. They were just reconfirming things I'd already learned. So it was kind of like just preaching to the choir, just trying to listen to people who have similar mind state, but nobody was really doing things. And when I was watching African Esquire TV, first of all, I always said that the videos are very logical, compared to everything else I saw. And there was very little that I ever disagreed with Tierney about. I was like, wow. And so when she put that call out, and she said that, she wanted to charge the United States with colonialism, I instantly thought, Brother Malcolm. We can pick up where Brother Malcolm left off. I'm all about this, so that's why I joined.
So thank you. I'll speak for me. So as for me, I had previously worked on starting an organization through YouTube because I believe very much what Kwame Ture taught. He said, every single African, you need to be in an organization. And if you can't find an organization that represents you, then you need to create one. So my first means was always to do organizations that felt represented me. If everyone can use their mics, please. So my first thing was to try to find organizations that represented me. There's a lot of organizations out there, but I guess like they weren't as accessible to me. So in my mind, like, okay, it's been a while. I still have not found an organization that I feel like I can join. So you know what? Let me look for a reason to create one. So I created one organization, FAL. Whenever that organization came to an end, I was like, all right, I want to start something more specific. And as Brother Konata said, I remember very clearly Malcolm X was very adamant that he wanted to go to the United Nations. And I believe personally that when he took an international view of the issues of Africans in the United States, when he started meeting with African leaders, when he started talking about that our struggle in America is just like the struggle in Africa, and we need to really show how the United States is a hypocrite to go to other countries and call them out for human rights abuses, whereas Africans in the United States are being victimized. I always believed that was just the reason that he got assassinated, because had he succeeded, had he gone to the United States and charged them in a time of decolonization, I think that really would have been a moment, particularly for continental Africans, because as we said, the United States has always been allowed to occupy space with human rights without even having a human rights record. So I was very inspired by his agenda to go to the United Nations. And I felt like a very specific purpose like that would be a great way to just have a group of Africans who are like-minded go into organizing. So after that, you know, we had some time where we were playing with the idea, how could we go to United Nations? And the idea became more so raising awareness among all Africans in the United States about colonialism. We all call ourselves victimized, but we don't call ourselves colonized. And when we start calling ourselves colonized, that takes us outside of just being a people in the United States. And that takes us to being like every single African in the world. So that's what was really driving me to start this organization. So Jamaal and Frank, I actually worked with them too when I was doing an organization called Federation of African Liberation. And I pitched to them particularly when that group was ending, I pitched to them, just let them know like what I was doing. And both of them were more than willing to join. And so I want to go to them now. Frank, what to you made you want to join this organization?
Firstly, I want to thank everybody here in this group and those that are yet to come. So I came here 2007 from Africa. So when I was in Africa, I experienced the situation of oppression, and I experienced learn also the many issues, the many factors that we face when it comes to oppression, when it comes to the colonialism, when it comes to the imperialist agenda. And then I began to understand the philosophy of Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré of Guinea, and Jomo Kenyatta, and the meta revolutionary. And I also began to understand Idi Amin Dada from Uganda. And I began to understand his philosophy, you know, during that time when he was the only, I think, African leader that I can really think about that really paid back. I don't want to say pay back because it was some kind of way, but that really make the white to understand that Black people too, you know, we can come at you as well. But the only person that we actually heard about, or me that we hear about in Africa, is Dr. King, and the way, you know, they just only his dream speech that they teach or that they bring to us. So he's the only person most people, you know in Africa. But when I came here, and one of the best thing that ever happened to me was to start my educational career with an HBCU. So that was one of the best things that happened to me. I did not go to, you know, Sobra school first. So while in there, and then I began to learn the African history. And then I became more involved with Malcolm X, because mind you, in Africa, I knew about Dr. King. But when I came here, I got more interest, you know, in learning more about Malcolm X. And the more I got to know about Malcolm X, the more I got to understand that one who stands for his people will always be looked in the eyes of the imperialists or the neo-colonialists as a threat. So the more I begin to learn, and I did not see Malcolm X as a threat, But the imperialists or the neo-colonialists begin to call Malcolm X an extremist. And it was the same way too. I begin to understand why they call Kwame Nkrumah a terrorist, why he was on the terrorist list. And looking at the situation on the fact that Nkrumah was not a terrorist, but he was just fighting for the freedom of his people. And then I begin to understand as well about Thomas Sankara. He was fighting for the freedom of his people, but he was looked at on the other side as a terrorist, and he was assassinated. I begin to look at picture, how they call it, Patrick Lumumba from DRC and all of those things. So I begin to understand Malcolm X's approach and where he was not afraid. And I begin to get, follow his philosophy that if you actually want to be free, your own freedom is in your hand. Your freedom is not in the hands of any man, especially the man that oppress you or colonize you. He's not going to give you freedom. And that drew me more closer. And while in class as well, a professor of mine, but he's in Canada now because he's married to a girl from how they call it, another African, but she was in UK studying, but they both moved to Canada to find a common ground. So he saw my thinking, my output, and the way I brought out my input in class among the other students was different. So after class that day, he called me in his office and began to ask me, he was like, your activist, career, like, I mean, your view on Black agenda, is why, like, what do you want to do? And I explained to him, my position when it comes to Black agenda, when it comes to Black liberation. And that's how he drew me to the All African People Revolutionary Party. And that's how I became member. I went for orientation, Reg server broke, and then they graduated me, and then I became members. And then I started going for work studies, to get more engaged. And then in 2012, I think Tierney and myself, with other students, we met in Harrisburg. We were there for a program for 3 months. And then from there, that's how we got to know each other. And then when Tierney got ready for the organization she just talked about, the Federation of African Liberation, she got in touch with me. And then I got on board. We worked together. But at some point, we kind of diverse. She, went ahead again to found the WCC, and she brought on board again. And this is how, we have come so far, and following the struggle of Black people. And I also feel that the reason why I really want to do this, because it's like the past is still the present. Nothing have changed. Like I heard from one activist, nothing has changed. It's just the marks has changed, but it's the same behavior. So the past is still the present. We are still experiencing what we experienced in the past, in the present, but it just different method of application that is being applied on us.
Just unmute, sorry. Jamaal, how about you?
Similar to what you talked about, what Frank talked about. I was previously with FAL, which was a Pan-African organization. What made me join WCC was, when you reached out to me. Ironically, when you reached out to me about WCC, I was in Kenya last time. You were telling me, you got a new organization up and rolling. It's hard for me to say no to an organizer such as yourself because, similar to what Konata said, you wasn't really finding too many people, on the internet space, with logic, who was really, we got a lot of great speakers on the internet. We got a lot of people who gives out good material, but a lot of them are, with all due respect, hotheads or they're fear mongers, But we was lacking, a level-headed person in the social media space. So when you made to reach out to me, I couldn't say no because based on the work that you do, based on the work Frank do and other people do as well. What put me to this Pan African space, I have to say I have to go back to my to my youth, I wasn't always there, just like most of us wasn't always there. I was kind of more of an integrationist at first, because growing up, we taught about the Rosa Parks and Dr. Kings, and all due respect to both of them, we don't want to discredit them, but we wasn't really taught about the radical people, the radical voices in our communities. So I think it was until I got to college that I really started to open up. Believe it or not, I had no recognition of who Marcus Garvey was until I was in college. You know what I mean? So, y'all still see me? Okay, I'm sorry, but when I learned about Garvey, he just opened up my eyes. What's so incredible about the work that he did was the UNIA was the largest mass movement ever documented in the U.S. Which is amazing. I think it had an estimated 11 to 13 million people worldwide. So then, after I started learning about Garvey, I've always been a Malcolm X fan for the most part. I mean, he's my um, favorite person ever in this movement because he was just bold and courageous, and you know he um, he really did a lot, in his short lifespan. So once I got hit more to Malcolm, similar to Frank, I never joined the All African People Revolutionary Party, but my mentor of mine, God rest his soul, was this guy named Shabaka Toure. He was in the movement with the All African People Revolutionary Party. I remember one summer, I think it was in 2013, that I flew out to Chicago where they had African Liberation Day there, and while I met some of the organizers there, on the Pan African front, it just really started to open up my eyes. So I don't want to carry on too much longer, but that's just the base of where I'm coming from and where we're trying to go as an organization.
So we're obviously based in the U.S. We're African Liberation Organization. I could say for all four of these guys, all of them were significantly connected to the African struggle, the Pan-Africanist struggle. And Nassor just told you about his background in Trinidad. Brother Konata and Jamaal, they both frequent Kenya. I know Frank. He's Liberia. First time I ever met Frank, he told me he was going to be the president of Liberia. I never forget that. So these are all people who are not just singly focused on domestic in the U.S. We're truly about African liberation worldwide. So I just wanted to point that out. Let's talk about a current event. We just had an election. And I want everyone to just give their thoughts on where are we as far as African liberation, because what we saw to me from this election is we saw a lot of people who kind of pushed people into believing in electoral politics as our ultimate liberation. And we're not going to get too carried away into this topic, but I just want to know everyone's thoughts in light of what's going on with this election season. If you're an African in the United States, where should you be looking? If you feel discouraged from the results of the election, should you be doing? If you're someone who is confused, what should you be aspiring to at this point? Because it seems like a lot of people are talking to us at the media about what we should be doing, but no one really has solutions. Anyone can go.
Well, the election,
go ahead.
to me, the election is not over until the Electoral College decides the final count. The media doesn't decide the president of the United States. The Electoral College does. But if you have a quarter, if you look at the quarter, you look at the heads and the tails, right? The Democrats and the Republicans. They're the same coin. When it comes to our liberation as Black people, can't really depend on the Democrats nor the Republicans, because they're the same coin. You flip it, heads or tails, that's what we're going to get. and the history of America, you can see based on the history of America, the way they've treated the Native Americans and criminally exploited us and kidnapped us and brought us here in America. So the only thing that the Democrats and the Republicans can do for Black America is pay reparations. They owe us the 40 acres and a meal. That's the only way America can regain peace and happiness and justice in this country. They have to amend for the crime against humanity, which is enslavement of African people.
Any other thoughts on what Africans should be looking to as liberation in this hot election?
Well, I always say that African people only have one problem. We've only ever had one problem since antiquity, and that is that we are not united. We don't believe in unity as a whole on a large scale. We're the only people on the planet who don't discriminate based on skin color and physical features. The only people that do that. And I believe, and we don't even want to live amongst each other. Like in the United States, we're spread out. You know, we want to be the first Black person in the neighborhood. That's what we aspire to. But all other groups, when they come here, they find out where the other people in their group are, and then they go there. And so what we need to be doing is consolidating ourselves. I mean, I've done videos about this in the past on Team Africa Worldwide and on the We Charge Colonialism channel, that we all need to be moving to the Southeast. Like 51% of us currently live in the Southeastern states, and the rest of us who are not in the Southeastern states, that's where we need to be headed. But we are too dedicated to dying over the block that our mama's running, in the words of Jay-Z. And we can't really have power like that. If all Black people move to the Southeast, where like in the Northeast, they call that New England. I would like to call the Southeast New Nubia. Me personally, I plan to repatriate to Africa, but for those Africans who want to remain here for whatever reason, you should all be living amongst each other, so you will have the power to elect governors, to elect senators, to make the presidential candidates come talk to you seriously when you hold those electoral college votes. If everybody was to move between Maryland and North Florida, that would change the whole dynamic of this country. But like I say, we're not united, and we don't want to live amongst each other. And everybody wants to be the man or the woman. Nobody wants to listen to anybody. Everybody wants to be the smartest in the room. And this goes on in the continent, it goes on here. I'm sure it goes on in South America. And non-Africans, they take advantage of our disunity.
I think Brother Konata, he pointed out something, very pivotal. As an individual, you kind of do have to make a decision. Are you going to stay in the United States and fight for yourself here to be sovereign and free? Or are you going to repatriate? Me personally, at some point I do plan to repatriate, but even whenever that does happen, I never would consider myself disconnected from what happens to my people here. And so a lot of what we do in We Charge Colonialism, it's about putting up a front so that our people who do remain here can have a commonality between the Pan-Africanist movement in the world. And understanding that whenever we build solidarity internationally, that is something that cannot be reckoned with. We've seen what happens when we're separated and when we're on our own, but we haven't seen the significant impact that foreign policy has always played inside of Black liberation. And I promise you, if you look through history, the history of our people, anytime that we've ever had any showing of international solidarity, that has just taken our struggle to a whole new level as far in the eyes of our oppressor. So it is very important, I think. First, you have to figure out what you do want to do. If you do plan to stay in the United States, you have to also focus on not just I agree with Brother Kanata. You know, should you be the 1% inside of an all-white city or all-white state? It's probably not politically going to be advantageous. And can you protect yourself whenever you're such a small portion of the population? So that you have to think about. But then the next step is, how do you put yourself in a position where you can not just politically organize your community, but you can organize on a global scale. So that's just my comment on what you said. So anyone else want to give their perspectives on this?
Yeah, I can come in. I want to start with this first. You know, before Trump became president, even past president when Obama was in power, and even other people, whenever Black people or African people come out to voice out their concern, mostly what we heard was, go back to Africa. If you don't like it here, go back to Africa. Go back to where you came from. Now, one of the things this Trump administration did for African people, not directly, but indirectly, one of the things he did for us, you know, that we were able to recognize and capitalize on it. I think for this generation, it is the first time ever for this generation to really look at Africa as a place, to move as a place to go. And we have seen it with the return, you know, the 2019 return or something like that, right? We have seen that, and where you see most African in diaspora actually moving back home and having no problem with it. And when you check on YouTube, you see a lot of organizations, you know, every time talking about, you know, putting groups together just to even visit, and which I appreciate so much. So with Trump administration and what we have seen, actually unite African with the continent, and it make African to really open themselves to the continent, to go back home where they belong, where they came from. That's the only area they can go and never be discriminated, because every other person you see in our place, they look just like you. You will walk 10 miles, 12 miles, 20 miles, you're just going to see the same person, and you will see somebody even look just like you, or somebody will even come to you and even call you by somebody that they know, and which of course you are not, right? That's one of the things this 4 year brought to African people in the diaspora, and it also make African people most of all to really form part of a group, not this group, but you really see African mobilizing in the diaspora, mobilizing, being part of an organization, being part of a group, and in that they are also working together as different entities, again, discussing the issue that face Black people, discussing the issue that face African people, and to really unite. This 4 year actually brought that to us. Not that they told us to do it, but we really saw it that this is what we need to do. And I can tell you, after this then even with the next person that is coming in power, I don't think you're going to hear any white person or any American saying, go back to Africa where you came from, because they have said they have seen it, and they know that our unity is a problem to them. But they were just saying that to make us scared, to make look afraid to see Africa and be a place where we are afraid of to go. But meanwhile, these are the same people. They travel to Africa than any other part of the world, almost every day. It's just that because of the coronavirus, but almost every day, if you go to New York, if you go to Newark Airport, you see these people there going to Africa, going for vacation, going for research purposes, and all of those things. Africa is one of the places they really travel, and they're going there for business, but they're not going to tell the African in the diaspora that we are going there for business, we are going there to get your mineral resources, but they will tell them we are going for research purposes. You see it? And then it will make the African in the diaspora to just sit down like, oh, okay, they are going for study. I mean, I can't go to Africa for study. I can go to Europe. I can go to Australia, to do my studies and all of you. But they're going to Africa, stealing your resources. But they will tell you, we are going there for studies. We are going there for tourism and things. And then we sitting here, we are so afraid. We don't want to, go to Africa. But this 4 year administration, this 4 year regime or rule, it really brought African attention to Africa and African attention, to form part of a group and to unite with their brothers and sisters on the continent. So I really love it. And I think, getting our freedom, that's, one of the things that we need to do to really get ourselves to the continent, because we got the resources. Africa does not need the war, but the war need Africa. Africa just need her children that are in the diaspora that, how they call it, carry on the Western economy, booming their Western economy with their knowledge, with their technology, with their engineering, with their doctor. That's all Africa need on the continent. If we go there, trust me, these people, they will have nothing to gain, because we will not need their expertise. Our expertise is what needed on the continent. We go there, we will not need anything from World Bank. We will not need anything from Switzerland Bank or Bank of America, and you name the rest. So we in the diaspora have a major part to play on the continent, because I tell you what, we in the diaspora, we already know the mindset of the imperialists when they go to Africa. When they speak to us, we already know their mind. But the people that are on the continent, our brothers and sisters on the continent, they don't know the mind of the imperialists or the neo-colonialists. So when these people speak, they don't really know what is in their mind. So they always open up to them because they carry catch. But we here, we interact with them. We know their mindset when they speak, whether they're saying the truth or not. So that's why, we are very, very important when it comes to the liberation of Africa and African people worldwide.
It's funny. I was just watching, like literally just a few hours ago, I was watching, have you guys seen the Patrice Lumumba movie? Yeah, I mean, it's really good. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you watch it. I'm usually not too keen on like movie interpretations, but I think
it's really good. I just saw that on Quelle TV last week.
Yeah, it's on Amazon too. If anyone has Amazon Prime, it was a really good movie. But what you really see is what Frank said is true. That the problem is that we're always looking outside. We're always looking for something else, but everyone else is looking to Africa. And you see how they really conspired to overtake the Congo, because Africa has everything that everyone else needs. Of course, somewhere like the Congo, that's the richest place in the world. I always want people to remember that. Inside of the soil in the Congo, there's things that the whole world is depending on. But it's so ironic that our people were so focused on emulating the European. We're so focused on obtaining what the European has. We're so focused on getting the things that the European makes out of things from Africa and produces and then sells back to us and markets to us. We're more concerned about that than actually being the people who are in power to say, oh, you want some of my copper, you want some of my rubber, you want some of these natural resources. Oh, well, you're going to have to go through the Africans who live there legitimately. So it's all like mind control, that they have us chasing things that are meaningless. And meanwhile, they understand the value inside of our homeland. They understand the value inside of the soil, inside of the resources of Africa. It's us who need convincing. So that's a very important point, I think. Jamaal, do you have anything to say on what Africans should be looking forward to as far as liberation post-election in the United States? Jamaal, you're muted.
I'm sorry, but yeah, Frank touched on a lot of similar thoughts that I have. A lot of people are looking towards Africa except us. I can say honestly, right here in Mombasa, I can see outsiders here. Even during the pandemic, it's very unfortunate, that we still sleep on the resources, we still sleep on the minerals, and we still sleep on the people. Because I say people because we need to come together across the whole diaspora, throughout the whole world. But ironically, a lot of us, back in the States, believe we could do everything by ourselves. But we have to have more allies. We have to have more networking amongst each other in order to make Africa more powerful. So I think somebody posted in the comments not too earlier today that they brought up the 1960s. The 1960s was a powerful decade for the Black Power movement. And I'm not just talking about in the U.S., but also across the continent, across the world, because in the 1960s, or the continent, you had people like Kwame Nkrumah, you had people like Jomo Kenyatta, you have people like Steve Biko, you have people like Nelson Mandela, people like Patrice Lumumba. All that consisted in the 1960s, but not only that, you also had the movement going on in the United States of America, with Dr. King. A lot of people don't know Dr. King came to Africa too. I think he came numerous times. A lot of people don't talk about that. They don't talk about how he went to Ghana and celebrated with the Ghanaian people when they first had their Independence Day back in 1957. So he too had an African side as well. And Tierney brought up Malcolm earlier today about his assassination. I truly believe that was the main reason why he was assassinated as well, his connection to Africa. Because people don't realize, Malcolm left the Nation of Islam in February, either late February or March of 1964. And he was assassinated in February of 1965. So less than 1 year after he left the Nation of Islam, he was assassinated. Why was he assassinated? Because so many times, so often when it comes to Malcolm X, we always talk about his pilgrim to Mecca, when he left the Nation of Islam. But not too often we hear about how he traveled to Kenya, how he traveled to Ghana, how he traveled to Nigeria, how he sat down with Kwame Nkrumah and other heads of states during the OAU conference in Egypt in 1964, I believe was the year. How they had the Pan-African movement up in movement. So that's powerful. We don't talk about that too often, when it comes to Malcolm X, And I believe that was the true reason why he was assassinated as well. So the 1960s was very powerful. That's why I don't believe it's a coincidence that since the 60s, the OAU turned into the AU, which is now consists of puppet leaders. I hate to say it, but that's just what I see it. Now we got a lot of black people associated with the Democratic Party who just uses us every 4 years. So we have to get back to that independent mindset. So we have to go back to what Stokely Carmichael talked about, which was his thing, when he wrote the book, The Blueprint of Black Liberation. I think that's a book that everybody should pick up. That's a book that we are required to read at WCC. That speaks volume to the political process that we currently having even today.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much in what you said that is very important for us to remember. But I want to highlight the 60s. The 60s was a crazy time for the world. It was so much happening at one time, and that's when Africans it seemed to have enough internationally. And of course, you had the United States who had agitations with Russia, and they were basically thrust us into a kind of international conflict, I would say, for their own proxy wars. But what I hope that we can do today, is find a way, not necessarily today, but today, modern times, find a way to change the narratives that the 60s is the height of liberation. Because I think that what's different about the 60s versus now is that I believe Kwame Ture actually said this. In the 60s, that was their first time facing this, what we were doing. Like, they didn't know how to respond. Whereas now they figured out ways to respond, meaning in the 60s, okay, it's the first time you had mass student demonstrations. You had people like Malcolm X talking about by any means necessary, and talking about going to the UN. You had all these demonstrations. You had Africans who had enough, and the white supremacist structure didn't know what to do. But they figured out what to do, and we've seen how they handled it so much differently within COINTELPRO. So what's up for us to do is to realize that we still have the same capacities that we had in the 60s. We still have the same organizational methods. We still have the same potential. But what we have to do now is find a way to not take the bait, what I mean by take the bait, I mean a capitalist system is constantly trying to distract you, constantly trying to pacify you, constantly trying to have you look at other means to be your liberation. Again, look what happened in this election. We had the Democrats versus the Republicans, and overwhelmingly our people were organizing around the Democratic Party. Like the Democratic Party said anything, gave any promise to us that would have equated our liberation. They were organizing around the Democratic Party. Like we did not just leave the Democratic Party with Barack Obama having had nothing from his administration. They were organizing around the Democratic Party. Like you would really think that the Democrats prioritize Black people more than anyone. And yet here we are, and we're so distracted by this symbolism. We're so distracted by this idea that all we need to do is go in and vote. And we're not even thinking of as an independent people. So understand, they know how to deal with us now. They know how to put Al Sharpton in front of us. They know how to put money inside of people's pockets. They know how to deal with us now. What we have to do is figure out a way to organize. The system is not going to throw us off course so easily. So those are my thoughts. Since we're talking about Africa, going back to WCC, because I do want to keep us under an hour, let's talk about something that we're actually doing. Brother Konata, you've been leading the initiative on the African Union. We one thing that we've kind of evolved on as an organization, we initially got into an organization focused on the UN. Not to say that's no longer a focus at all, but understanding that the UN is a white supremacist system. People always comment on my videos like, you do know that the UN is ran by the United States. I'm like, yes, I know that. The UN is not an end. It's more of a means to an end. The means to an end meaning we have to have our plight on an international stage. But understanding that it's not the end, we're not trying to just get to the UN and that be it. There are other means we think that are more favorable for Africans, such as the idea that Brother Konata came up with that kind of started a whole initiative that we've been doing, that we need to make sure that we get some type of recognition for Africans in America and in the African Union. So we that was our goal, and that's what we're working towards. And so Brother Konata has been working right now on an AU passport. If you could just tell us, where do you envision this initiative going, this idea that Africans in America could have a passport that would allow them to travel to any country in Africa? What do you think the importance of that? Where do you envision it going?
Well, first of all, as far as the importance, having the African passport will give African Americans a greater sense of identity, a greater sense of belonging. What it will also do is it will allow African Americans to travel throughout the continent visa free. Not only does that save a few dollars while traveling, but that also means that you can stay for as long as you want. When you're on a visa, visas have expiration dates, and then eventually you have to leave. So just having the passport alone is a great step towards embracing who we are. But we're trying to take it beyond that and hopefully streamline African Americans actually becoming citizens of countries on the continent. Most people I know are interested in dual citizenship, and I know some countries don't have dual citizenship, but some people are even willing to give up their U.S. citizenship in order to obtain citizenship of a country. I'll have to think that through. But I think this is definitely going to happen. It's just more or less when it's going to happen. If people are familiar with the African Union, they have something called the Sixth Region. And the Six Regions is all Africans who do not reside on the continent, whether you're a recent migrant from Africa or if you're a descendant. And so what they're trying to do is make it a more official title. The one reason why I know that the African passport is taking a while to come out is that they also have to get the Wazungu on board to accept. They want the all African passport to be accepted for worldwide travel as well. And so, but we have a petition on change.org. You go to change.org. you'll see a petition that says 6 region to receive the AU passport, African diaspora to receive the AU passport. Right now, we have about 1,500 signatures, which is a good start, but we want to get that number as high as possible. And just we have to let the people on the continent, the heads of states and the citizenry there, know that we consider ourselves to be Africans and we want to come home, even if it's just to visit. You always hear a lot of Black people who have never been to Africa say things like, African people don't like us, referring to continentals. And I always say, they don't even know you. How they don't like you if they don't know you? You haven't even been there. How are you gonna say they don't like somebody don't like you who've never seen your face before? It's hilarious. And so this is what we're pushing to get for us to receive the all African passport, because ultimately we're going to get rid of these colonial boundaries that were made. I get so upset when people think they're being wise and intelligent, saying Africa is a continent. It has 55 countries. Australia is also a continent. It's one country. United States takes up half of North America. All it is 50 countries. And they came up with the idea that we're going to call these 50 countries one country, and now they're a superpower. And that's what Africa needs to do, the same thing. Turn those 55 countries, or the ones out of the 55 countries who want to come together, into one country. And that's how you get things done. I mean, that's how they do it in business. That's how the Koreans took over the beauty care market. If I own a little hair supply store and I'm trying to buy some perm and some activator, they'll charge me one price. But if you got 100 stores that's under one umbrella buying together, you can't compete with that. And that's you do that in business and you do that in nationhood. And so that's what we're working on, and it's going to happen. And the more people to get behind it, the sooner it'll happen.
We keep hearing people talk about how, Africa, they just want Africans in the diaspora to basically spend money or tourism. But the same way that you have the mentality that I'm not just going to spend my money, with this corporation, it's not going to represent me. I think we have to have like a similar mentality with Africa, like in the African Union, we'll come to Africa, we'll come and invest in Africa, we'll do all of that, but we're not going to do it without having representation, and we're not going to do it without having understanding that if you are a victim of the transatlantic slave trade, you have a right to go to your homeland. That's not something that we're doing passively. The reason we're doing this is because we believe, every single one of us, that as Africans in the diaspora, that we absolutely have the right to claim Africa as our home. So we have to organize. If you want to complain about it, oh, they're just trying to get money, or they're just trying to get that. Okay, maybe that's a motivating factor for a lot of people. But if you're not in an organization to push and say, hey, no, we want to make sure that we're actually getting something for this. Because as Brother Konata said, I don't think that's a huge issue. A lot of governments have been granting citizenship, but I think there has to be a more of a demand from us to get more. And so that's what I think we're going with that. Anyone else want to talk about that initiative, or we could talk about what Frank's doing with the political action. So Frank has been working a lot with Black Alliance for Peace and the Black is Back coalition. So Frank, could you speak a little bit more on what you're doing moving forward, where you see us going with our movement and start working with these different organizations that are Pan-Africanist Black liberation organizations?
Yeah, I think like I mentioned earlier from the beginning of this podcast, and I said, this time period, really, we have seen a lot of African organizations coming together for one or two area of what we are facing today. And like I said, the last time on the 7th of this month, we met in Washington, D.C. Almost everything we heard there was, like the same language. Everybody was speaking this in the same tune: imperialism, neo-colonialism, oppression, and police brutality, and so forth. So now, police brutality is not just only in Africa. I mean, only in the United States. Police brutality against Black people is all over in the world. Even in Africa, our own soldiers in Africa brutalized us because of the colonial influence, because of the colonial constitution, because of the colonial influence to our government, and then against our people. So police brutality is all over, not only in the United States. So when we met in Washington, D.C., we spoke on these things. So currently, in this organization, we have, how they call it, the Political Action Committee that is working with various organizations like the Black Alliance for Peace, and the Black is Back, and we also have the African People Socialists as well, that we are working with, that they were all part of the march in Washington, D.C. on the 7th. And we all spoke, the same language, and we all work together collectively for the same purpose. And I really like that word, collectively. And we were at that meeting, and you could see the collective movement, the collective idea, and the collective effort of African organizations really linking together, even though we're different organizations, but linking together and discussing the issue affecting African people, not only in the United States, but the issue affecting African people worldwide. And we also get to realize that the same colonial mentality in Africa against African people is the same colonial mentality in the United States against African people. So in the United States here, we also recognize that in the United States, African people are being colonized locally, and as well, African people are being colonized internally in Africa and other parts of the world. So we are all fighting the same enemy. We are all fighting the same beast. And by we being a Pan-Africanist, and that is why the imperialists or the neo-colonialists do not want to see Pan-Africanists succeed, do not want to hear about the word Pan-Africanist, because Pan-Africanist, it just means identifying yourself, who you are, and try to fight for yourself, then to ask the oppression, keep asking the oppressor for equality, for freedom. And Malcolm X told us, the man who enslave you, the man who oppress you, will never, ever give you freedom. Because in his mind, when he gave you freedom, or when he empower you, you're going to turn against him and do the same thing he's been doing to you. And we saw that with Frederick Douglass, and the life and death of Frederick Douglass, when his little book that he wrote, and when you read that book, it will explain the same thing to you. Well, he was living with his slave master, and when the slave master go to work, and the slave master wife will be teaching him, and then many days the slave master came home and told the wife, do not teach the Negro, do not teach the Negro boy, because if you teach him, he become educated, he will know that what we're doing to him is against humanity, and he will come after us. It's the same thing. So our oppressor is not going to empower us. So part of this committee, what we're working on is to work with various organizations to point out the issue of African people, and to work with with other organizations around the world to put African agenda first, and also to work on the issue of reparation. Now, a lot of time when you talk about reparation, people think it's just money or it's just capital. So now every revolutionary movement or entity have a tactic, have a movement. So there is change or a swift in the way you carry on the movement. So with this time period, with our generation, when we talk about reparation that we are currently working on, we are not just talking about capital or money. We are also talking about self-determination. We are also talking about freedom of ourselves. We are also talking about land. We are also talking about our integrity as human beings. All of those things form part of reparation. We should be able to control our community. We should be able to control our nation, our state, without any imperial influence, without any capitalist influence. If there should be any influence, it should be from us, we African people, should influence our own affair. So that is what we are working on right now as an entity, as an organization, along with other organizations fighting for reparation. So reparation in this case, it doesn't just mean money. So we are fighting for all aspects of our life in this generation when it comes to reparation. So that's where we are right now.
Brother Konata, we have some people asking to sign the petition. I cannot find the link so easily. I know you always have it on hand. So if you could post that in the chat, and then I will pin it in the comments for someone also, if they want to sign, and hopefully you all sign. The point again is that we're saying that as Africa is moving towards granting passports to their citizens in their different countries where they can move about freely. That's what's happening with the new trade agreement. We're saying Africans in the diaspora. We're also trying to put in demand that if we're really a sixth region as the African Union calls us, that we should also be given similar rights to move around freely in the African continent. So Brother Konata is going to work on that. So I will finish out with talking about where we're going with the legal aspect. WCC Legal, thank you so much everyone who donated to just helping me to get the funds. It's just starting the organization and filing with the government and all that stuff. But basically what we're going to start pushing really hard is human rights education. All of us, we have to understand that the Europeans, they created these ideals of human rights. Now, is the human rights sphere colonized? Very much. They put rights in place, but they put it in a place that basically, like, you have to jump through hoops to get if your country is violating your rights, you have to jump through all these hoops in order to get some type of remedy. And really, they don't have a remedy, because we know the people with the army, particularly, is the United States government. Most other countries do not even have any bargaining power at the United Nations because of something called the Security Council. But what we do need to know is that there are rights that are on the books that countries all over the world, whether in Africa or Europe or whatever, they've all signed up on these rights. And it's our job to know these rights, call them out, and be able to call out the hypocrisy of countries that condemn places that have, in my opinion, insignificant human rights records when you compare them to the human rights committed by the United States government. It's our job to call them out. And so that's what WCC Legal will be focusing on. We're going to be doing human rights education, and we're going to be pushing forward with also doing, hopefully, some actual petitions and lawsuits at some point. So that's something that you're going to be seeing from that aspect of WCC going forward. So with that, I tried to keep this under an hour. We're just going over an hour now. So I'll say just thanks everyone for joining. Brother Konata, were you able to find the link? Trying to see. Thank you. Working on it. So please.
Yes.
What's that?
I had to put it in the private chat. I couldn't put it in the comments.
So I'm gonna put it in the comments. I got it right here. Mama. So posting it right here. Thank you, everyone, if you could sign the petition. And if you are interested in We Charge Colonialism, we have a website, wechargecolonialism.org. You can also go to if you're interested in joining, you could go to wechargecolonialism.org. If you want to send us an email, give us some comments, you can hit us at wechargecolonialism@gmail.com for now. Hopefully we'll be getting a more official email soon. But that's how you can reach us. So thanks everyone for joining us. We hope that you guys have learned anything. Any closing thoughts from everyone?
I just want to say is one thing going back to the election. The narrative that being told by the media when we went to bed that Trump was winning Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. And then when we woke up, they said after they counted the urban vote, meaning Atlanta, Detroit, Philadelphia, and Milwaukee, that Biden won those states and so won the presidency. Okay, if you believe this to be true, that means that Black people elected the president. So if Biden becomes the president, what are you all going to do now? Because this means that Biden owes Black people. So I want to see what who are diehard Democrat who voted for Joe Biden, and now they're saying that the votes from Detroit, Milwaukee, Pennsylvania, and Atlanta is what made this man president. I want to see y'all make some demands because Joe Biden owes black people.
Listen, I did a video for WCC and I said that, you know, all these black leaders, these black puppets, you guys have ran out of excuses. And what Brother Konata said is true. We literally put this man in the White House. Literally, if you listen to the ballot or the bullet speech and you hear Malcolm say how we're the one that puts them in the White House, that's literally the truth. And there's no more excuses. What are we going to do now? We have no excuse but to organize at this point. So, you know, anyone else have closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think I can just add to that, like the video, the video you made. It was a great video, and adding to that, I will tell you this, Brother Konata. This election is the last hope for Democrats to get black votes, and it's the last hope for Joe Biden as an individual to restore hope in black people. For him, if he wants for black people to remember him in history as a good man, it is the last hope for him to change around to undo what he did against black people. If he don't do it, he's never going to be judged. He's going to go to his grave, and black people will be angry at him and mad at him, and every other judgment you think about, it will go to him, it will go with him in his grave. This is the last chance for him in government to put himself together, although he came out to apologize to black people, but this is a different generation. You apologize, okay, you have to undo what you did. And it is the last bar stop for him to put himself together to do everything he did against black people, to undo everything. And also for the Democrat, it is the last bar stop for them to put themselves together to when it comes to black institution, when it comes to black issue, when it comes to black health and all of those things, to put themselves together to get some level of equality to black people. If not, I'm sorry for them.
And I would say on top of that is the last chance for these black leaders, because, and I say leaders, you know, cautiously, because a lot of them have been put in place by the white infrastructure. So if you're a black leader who has no ties to the black community, but we have to regard you as a leader because they put you in power, you know, are you really a leader? Probably not. But if that's what you want to call yourself, to me, this is the last chance, because there's no excuses anymore. You know, we've done this. You know, you had your boogeyman. Trump was the boogeyman. Oh, we have to get the boogeyman out, you know. And we're at a point now where if we accept this any longer, we have to just give up on any type of self-respect. You know, we've diminished our political leverage significantly. But if this happens, and I perceive it's going to still be a good amount, you know, 4 years from now. If it comes that there are these people, we allow these people to come back to us and tell us this lie that we have to come together and get behind the Democrats, and we have to do it because it's kind of like our duty as black people. If this happens again, then I'm telling you, it's just so much self degenerating at this point to keep seeing this happen over and over again. So I agree with you guys' sentiment. So anything else before we close out? Anyone else?
I'd like to touch on what Frank said and what other people said as well. You know, I think this is the last hope for the Democratic Party. I really truly believe that we have woken up when it comes to the Democratic Party, because even though Biden got into office, we was on his behind throughout the whole election. I just think the only reason why he won the presidency, well, supposedly, we will wait until it's official, is because Trump was just that bad. You know, I mean, any other candidate, I think we would have just folded and not give in to the Democratic Party anymore. So I think this is their last hope, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I think they ran out of tricks. You know, so we are on their behinds, and we need to be on their behinds. And the last thing I want to say is, you know, be careful about social media and activism, because I truly believe that in a social media age, we are given false information too much when it comes to our liberation struggle. And a lot of these so-called activists on Twitter, on Facebook, or Instagram, they are actually a detriment to our people. They are brainwashing our people. They are not political leaders. You know, we have to truly organize. We have to really, 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 you know, not fall for the bait, as Tierney brought up earlier in a conversation, like the Coach Tell Pro did back in the 1960s, because we still having these little petty beefs on YouTube, Twitter, people trolling and stuff like that. That's not good for our movement. We have to have sincere movements to actually get things done.
Okay. I just want to thank the Black family for joining us tonight, and to remember, some of us are doing well as individuals. We have doctors, lawyers, police officers. Some of us are doing well financially, individually, but collectively, as a people, we're not doing well um, within the United States and globally. We have to start thinking collectively as a group, as one people. Um, we see our people struggling out there, but we have to start thinking more collectively. How can we help the group instead of individually thinking? And that, thank you very much.
Perfect close. So you guys, thank you for joining us again. WeChargeColonialism.org, and we hope to see you guys in the future.